More questions? Yes, please.
I apologize for bringing up an older title, but whatever happens to Shadow Star?
Well, it got put on hiatus along with the rest of Super Manga Blast. We are trying to figure out a way that if we can, we want to see if we can make it workable, make the numbers workable, to finish off some of those series in omnibus format, sort of get them all out. That doesn't mean that we have plans to do it. It means we're trying to figure out if we can do it. Especially in the current recession, which you all may have heard of, it's somewhat more difficult to get those projects approved. But if we can make the numbers line up, the omnibus format is increasingly popular at the bookstores. They were getting tired of like the, not only there's so many manga coming out, but they all were in individual volumes. And every individual volume had to be individually promoted, individually shelved, individually marketed. It's a lot more efficient for many people to do these this big or these omnibus editions. There is some question about whether we have to do them over again because, of course, the Super Manga Blast versions were flopped. So there's the question about, should we just finish them in flopped format? Would people buy them? Or should we do them again unflopped in order to like get a larger audience who may not have been into it the first time? It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of the vertical titles have been flopped, and no one's really complained about that. But I think vertical is selling to a somewhat different audience. Pretty geeky? Shadow Star? Shadow Star is the feel-good hit of the year.
Oh, yeah, right. You know, Boku da Naga license.
Manga that makes you think it's going to be nicer than it actually is. Yes?
What's your favorite manga that Dark Horse doesn't publish?
You mean it's published by another company? Probably Detroit Metal City. Get it! My really good friend from Viz, Kit Fox, edits it, so I just have to give that an endorsement. There's a lot of great manga out there. That's just off the top of my head. It would be nice to have done Genshiken.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say.
Is there a manga coming out right now in Japan that would be like a dream license for you, or just something that you would just die to work on, besides, obviously, Clamps Mangettes, which you do get to work on?
You know, one of the weird things, I mentioned that I was the only editor at Dark Horse who only works on manga, and everyone else works on either all comics or at least some comics. They've got a different situation because when they make a pitch that we should do a book, it's for books that don't exist yet. In other words, the comic isn't going to exist unless they bring it about. They have to, you know, bring the artist and writer together and so forth. But the books I work on, they all already exist. So I don't get quite so upset if we can't make a book happen, because at least I know it exists. I mean, I can still enjoy it in Japanese. And I have suggested books which were famous failures, like Satsuma Gishiden, as I'm always, you know, using this example. I'm not sure why Satsuma Gishiden failed, but then again, I'm not sure why Logan Wolf and Cub succeeded. And don't take that the wrong way, Wolf and Cub is great, but my logic, so-called quote-unquote logic back in the year 2000 was that this isn't going to succeed. Who's going to want to read a manga about a bunch of crusty old samurai? There's no cute girls in it, it's too small, it's bunko size, no one's going to enjoy it. You know, it's 28 volumes, no one's going to stick with it. I was completely wrong on all counts. Lone Wolf and Cub has sold over 1 million copies. It's still our best-selling title. But if people embraced a 70s samurai classic like that, why didn't they embrace a 70s samurai classic like Hiroshi Arata's Satsuma Gishiden? That's only 5 volumes. Yukio Mishima was a fan of this, you know, that's how hardcore it was. The guy who actually disemboweled himself, you know. It wasn't just cosplay, he actually did it. But,
here's a ringing endorsement.
Look him up sometime, fun fellow. You know, so there are certain manga that part of my responsibility as an editor is to not lose Dark Horse money. Because after all, every once in a while I look at my paycheck and it occurs to me where it actually comes from. It comes from Dark Horse making money and not losing money. So you know, we are not, Dark Horse is a privately owned corporation. We are not the subsidiary of major Japanese publishers like Viz. We are not part of major entertainment groups like DC. We're a pay-as-you-go company. Our books have to make money. As I said, DC or Marvel technically they would never have to release a single comic book, and they still have the cash flow. Why? Because they own all those characters, and they own all the merchandise that comes off it. DC owns Superman, they own Batman. Dark Horse, our most famous characters, they're owned by their creators, which is fine because that's what we wanted to do, so they wouldn't get ripped off the way creators were in the old days. But it also means that we have to make money on our comics. So I may have a title that I really like, a manga title, but I can't actually in good conscience recommend it because I have reasons to doubt if it's actually going to make sales. Mm-hmm. So that's part of my responsibility too. There may be a title which I think is really good, and it's nothing against the title, but it would not be responsible for me to seriously recommend that Dark Horse do it. Mm-hmm. Konbini DMZ is probably one of those, and runs in Young King R's same magazine as Hellsing. But somehow I don't think it'd be a big hit here. It's about you know what a konbini is? It's a convenience store. And basically it's about a Japanese convenience store which for some reason is set up in the Balkans. A demilitarized zone full of savage, war crimes and genocide. But all the different sides come together in the DMZ to buy their combos and all that. Recently they had a story claiming that this convenience store has been there since World War II, and they had a flashback where the Russians and the Nazis were clashing, but stopped to get their combos. And, his great grandparents of all the characters looked exactly like the characters. But I think only a country that hasn't fought a war in over 65 years, can do things like that. I don't know if you've seen Afghani-tan. Mm-hmm. Afghani-tan is the Moe version of Full Metal Jacket. It's basically it's the whole training sequence for Full Metal Jacket done with cute girls. They're still spouting the same dialogue. You're the lowest form of life on Earth. And do you guys know about Afghani-tan?
Well, yes, actually.
Right. Well, a lot of the nations in Central Asia end in Stan, which means land of. So someone realized that technically that means they also all end in Tan. So why can't they all be cute little characters? So it's a guy who is doing these 4-panel comics. He's seriously trying to explain Central Asian politics through the form of Moe. So Afghani-tan is a little girl in a burqa. Fortunately, a burqa, you can still see her eyes, so her eyes are really big and cute. And she's really poor and clumsy and always being picked on by larger powers.
Oh.
Her big sister is Russia, Bernay Sama. And but the British push her around, the Americans push her around, And so in these little 4-panel strips, they try to inform up today's otaku about these serious, political issues. And again, I think I don't think Japan is foolish for not having fought a war. They may actually be the smart ones, But again, I think only a country which doesn't take seriously the idea of going to other countries with a gun and all that can probably produce these kind of things. I don't think we in America could actually do comics like that because it's just too far from our actual experience. Because we're fighting actual wars all the time.
There's been a lot of buzz about Cat Shit 1 getting a movie or getting an anime, and I've heard a couple of people talk about how great it would be to get the manga back since ADV only released 3 volumes of it, something
Why?
like
That's
that.
a very good idea.
Yeah.
So,
Hint, hint.
Yeah. By